Hello and welcome back to KSAC's Online Learning Hub. Today we're going to be talking about workplace sexual harassment. Part 1. In Part 1, we're going to be talking about what sexual harassment is, what it looks like, what discrimination is, what are the laws related to workplace sexual harassment, and what are the barriers that people face while they want to report about sexual harassment but they're not able to. So let's dive into it. Before we start any presentation, we acknowledge the land that we are on. So we respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabeg, land associated with Treaty 20 and Williams Treaties. Local Indigenous partners remind us that Peterborough's traditional name is Nagoshivanong. That means place at the foot of the rapids in Anishinaabe-Moan. We offer our gratitude to First Peoples for their care for and their teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. So what is Kawartha Sexual Assault Center? So as we talk about our center in multiple videos and multiple voiceover videos that we have, we always say that we support individuals of all genders that are 16 ages and up and who are impacted by all forms or any form of sexual violence, whether it was recent or it's been historical. Our services include individual counseling, educational groups, advocacy accompaniment, prevention education, and 24/7 support phone line. If anybody has any questions, they can call and connect with that line. We will pop up the line and the supports in one of our presentations. And yes. Sexual harassment in workplace. So what does it actually mean? Sexual harassment in workplace is a type of discrimination based on sex or gender of an individual. It can affect a person's sense of dignity, earning a living, doing a job effectively, poisoning the environment for everyone else. Existing behavior can escalate into violent actions in workplace. So sometimes what happens is when people are experiencing sexual harassment, there can be a lot of barriers to reporting them. And the common barriers is that people do not want to lose the jobs that they have, or they are scared of the employer, or the perpetrator is one of the people who kind of perpetrated that harassment on someone. So an effect on a person's life who is dealing with sexual harassment can look like a lot difficult in a lot of senses, because in this time of inflation and the world that is going towards more like expensive things and all that, nobody wants to lose their job, right? So it becomes a little difficult for people to make a decision. Either they want to continue on in that unsafe environment with their boss or the colleague who is perpetrating this violence, or just keep on going with their lives. And sometimes people do find a way to report these incidences, and they find that braver heart of theirs and they do report, but they are not able to get the support that they need, right? Because cases in the courts take a long time and not a lot of people are able to get the justice that they need, or there is not a lot of movement from the employer who is in the position of power to help out the person. So a person can see that their life is degrading on a lot of levels, including their mental health, their physical health, their personal relationships, their finances, their ability to continue in that job which they love, and not able to continue that anymore. So what is discrimination at work? Discrimination at work happens when adverse actions are taken against an applicant, and in this case we say individual, any individual, or an employee because of that individual's race, their skin color, their national origin, gender, disability, genetic information, pregnancy, religion, age, or relationship to another person. So discrimination can take a lot of forms, and sometimes people don't even recognize that they are discriminating against an individual, but they sometimes do so. And what happens in that situation is that these discriminatory remarks come as microaggressions that people are not able to recognize, right? And these microaggressions can be because of somebody's culture, right? Sometimes we don't understand someone's culture, so we question everything, and it can be harming to them in a lot of different ways. So discrimination is actually a type of sexual harassment that happens in workplace a lot. And discrimination itself has a lot of forms. So we're discussing two main forms, that is discrimination against the 2S LGBTQIA plus community folks. So for example, if somebody has a gender expression or sexual orientation that is different from what other people have learned through generations, they might find it a little difficult to adjust in the environment with somebody who is, well, let's say, not a privileged white male person, right? Or a person who is not confounding to the two genders that we have built in our society. So those kind of ideas can actually lead to isolation. So isolating them from like meetings, isolating them from group events, isolating them from just conversation at the water tank, all are forms of discrimination that comes out like microaggressions, or telling somebody that they are loud only because they're from a different culture where a different tone of language is used, a different pressure on the language is used, right? Those are all forms of like microaggressions and discrimination that people kind of face in workplaces sometimes, and not always it's understood as workplace sexual harassment. Sexual orientation discrimination, like I talked about, is also a kind of discrimination based on somebody who is not confounding to certain sexes or genders that have been constructed in the society patriarchally. And so they express themselves as they come, which they are allowed to, but the workplace becomes a little bit uncomfortable for other folks, and they try to gossip around them. They try to ask a lot of like intimate questions and cross those boundaries. So discrimination is kind of an encompassing big umbrella that one person needs to understand before they ask any questions, or if they're addressing somebody with certain things, to be mindful of what you are asking and what you're saying, and if it's okay or not, right? So what does the law say about it? The Occupational Health and Safety Act is the one that kind of guides the policies and principles in every workplace across Ontario and federally. So engaging in a course of vexatious comment, any comment that is kind of like sexually advancing, or any comment that does not kind of like sits well with a person's personal boundaries, is a vexatious comment. Or conduct against a worker in a workplace where the comment or conduct is known or ought reasonably to be known to be unwelcome, right? So the OHSA kind of redid their own entire definition in 2021. Before 2017, they had like more power put in the hands of the employer. So it's like the employer decides like when this report can go through, or if somebody's reporting, how much can they report, how much they can express, and things like that. So there was a lot of like discrepancies, and they were seeing like a lot of people not coming forward to reporting because they found that there are a lot of barriers in understanding what sexual harassment actually means. So earlier it was like, if you have somebody who has advanced physically towards you, will be counted as sexual harassment, which is actually not true, right? Making comments on somebody's body, saying verbal comments about somebody, making jokes about somebody's culture, ethnicity, or their body type is also counted as sexual harassment. So OHSA in 2021 kind of like said, okay, we need to include these many things in our definition as well, so it's more inclusive and people understand where the boundary is. And then second, making a sexual advance, so physical advances or touching somebody or getting close to somebody, getting into their bubble, or solicitation, where the person making the advance is in a position to grant or deny a benefit to the worker. So for instance, saying that, oh my God, I'm your boss and I will give you this promotion if you go out with me. So something like that, right? So OHSA is recognizing like these are the kind of things that actually happen and we need to include that in the definition. And OHSA is the one that is the regulatory body. Whenever somebody is reporting, OHSA guidelines and policies and procedures and regulations are need to be met. And according to that, they are gone to the court, and they are kind of like in the civil courts, they are addressed that way. So what does sexual harassment actually look like? So sexual harassment can look like actions or comments, right? Asking for sex in exchange for a benefit or a favor, right? So this is like a very like kind of direct advance. I will give you a promotion if you go out with me, if you become my partner, or if you spend more time with me, right? So those are the examples. And then repeatedly asking for dates to someone and not taking no for an answer, demanding hugs. Oh, you've known me for 4 years, so you can probably hug me now, even though the person feels uncomfortable and the other person keeps asking for hugs. It's like crossing the boundary. Every person in the workplace or at home in their personal lives have some boundaries that not need to be crossed, right? Because it keeps you safe, those boundaries. So even if somebody is not able to express their boundaries, that doesn't mean that they have none. So it's always good to ask, are you taking hugs today? Are you into hugs today? Is it okay if I pat on your back? Is it okay if I touch your shoulder? Something like that, to kind of like make the workplace more inclusive for everybody, and also kind of protecting oneself while you were respecting others' boundaries and they respect yours. Making unnecessary physical contact, so kind of like touching everybody or poking someone, using rude or insulting language or making comments about their body, comments about how they speak, right? Comments about the accent that they have, comments about how they express themselves, right? Calling people sex specific derogatory names. So if somebody is not a straight male person, straight female person, you call them some names that are derogatory in nature and also kind of repulsive and kind of offensive to that particular 2S LGBTQIA plus community. Right? So those are forms of sexual harassment in its big sense. Making sex-related comments about a person's physical characteristics, so what somebody is wearing, why they're wearing that, somebody's wearing heels or not, somebody wearing skirts or not, things like that. Posting or sharing sexual images, so even if there is like a couple in the workplace and without each other's permission they're posting those images or showing it around. It is very common in some certain workplaces where people take images of their partner with themselves and they show it around to their coworkers. It's not okay. Those images are for you and you alone, and you're not allowed to actually share them with anybody else, right? So doing that is also kind of crossing that big boundary where you are like, oh, these are your intimate images, these are your, safer space images that you're showing around as a buffet, which is wrong. Making sexual jokes. It's never okay to make sexual jokes because we don't know what the other person might take out of it, right? And then bragging about sexual prowess. Oh, I have dated so many people in my life. Oh, I'm doing this now, I'm doing that now. And bragging about their personal lives, their intimate images, and bragging about other certain parts of their lifestyle with somebody else, especially their coworkers, is not okay. Because honestly, even if somebody is a good friend of yours in the workplace might not be the best place to kind of discuss the intimate situations that you are in with your partner or anybody that you are seeing or dating, right? So there are some boundaries that not need to be crossed, and also not everybody is available to provide you the emotional support or whatever support that you're looking for when you, without permission, share all those details with somebody. Somebody might cringe, right? So these are all forms of sexual harassment that sometimes we overlook, that sometimes we think that, oh, it's okay to probably share all that information, but to the other person, it might be crossing their boundaries. So what is the top barrier to reporting workplace sexual harassment? Now that we know that things have happened, somebody crossed a line, but now you don't know what to do. And why in certain cases people do not want to report is because they don't want to create a hostile work environment. They want to be happy and nice to everybody. It's sometimes hard to tell where the line is these days. What is sexual harassment? Right? So sometimes we kind of blur the lines between, oh, this is just a joke, versus, oh, this is actually an advance towards me, right? They don't want the perpetrator to lose the job. So you have known somebody for 5 to 10 years and now you're like, oh my God, they are going to lose their job if I report them, right? So you, being the moral and right and nice person, you don't want to report them. The person was not aware that their behavior was inappropriate. So sometimes we see that as an excuse. I didn't know that I was doing that. I'm sorry that you felt that I was offending you. Well, first, they are not actually saying sorry because they're putting the blame on you to be feeling bad. And second, when a person is saying something, the brain is automatically in the back of their head, even 5-10 minutes before, is processing the same information. So nobody just blurts out things. Those processes are already going in the back of their head. So that means there are some internal biases in that person's head already going that need to be addressed. Because if they can say it out loud, that means they have been thinking about it before. And retaliation from coworkers, perpetrator, or management. Yes, sometimes it happens that the co-workers do not believe you, and there's a lot of retaliation because they have known the other person for a longer time and they do not believe what the situation is like or what has happened. Let's talk about intent versus impact. So it's a very important part of like understanding sexual harassment in workplace, because sometimes we do excuse these things by saying, oh, we didn't know that we were doing that. I didn't mean that joke in a racist way. It was just meant to be funny, right? So these things come up very often. So it's important to understand what the intent of the person is and what the impact of what they're saying is. Whether or not we intend to cause harm or discomfort to anyone, we must still take responsibility when something we do or say happens, right? So it's important to take responsibility. Even if you have said something wrong and offensive, say sorry, communicate with that person, and ask them if they are all right. So check in. Right? Open communication kind of builds that atmosphere at workplace, which is supportive to everybody. It is incredibly invalidating to say things like, well, I didn't mean it like that. It was only a joke. Sorry that you took offense to what I said. So in the last slide, as I mentioned, that sometimes when people say sorry, they're putting the blame on us to be feeling that way. A sorry means, sorry, I take responsibility of what I have said and done, and it will not be repeated, right? Whereas if somebody says, sorry that you felt this way, it was only a joke, they're not actually saying sorry. And when somebody makes a joke, they have already constructed that joke in their back of their heads. That means that bias or that racist behavior or that discriminatory behavior is already there in them. And that needs to be reported or kind of acknowledged or addressed right in that moment. When we focus on the impact of our words and actions that we have had on the other person, even if we didn't mean it or fully understand it from their perspective, we can begin to make meaningful work towards apologizing. So apology is very important when abruptly you've said something that has been going in your head, but now it's come out. So it's important that you address it, acknowledge it, become accountable for what you have said, and kind of start making apologies and address it in a way that seems like you're really apologizing and you're working towards it. So you're not risking your job and you're not risking other person to be at unsafe kind of like perspective of you being there. We need to make commitments to tangible things we can do to rectify the situation. So not everything needs to be reported, and that's okay, because sometimes reporting can become a big procedure for everybody. But there are things that you can do early on, so making sure that you express your boundaries, what you like and you don't like in the workplace. And you don't have to be a rude person to do that. You can be a polite person and say, I do not like hugs, and I would really appreciate if everybody can ask me before hugging me, right? Simple as that. And so the next time people will know that they have to ask you before they hug you. And somebody might say, oh, I don't like being touched at all, or people being too close to my face when they're talking to me. And that might be their boundary. And then you create an environment that is safe for you all. And we reduce the risk of having sexual harassment cases on our hands, right? So this is all the part 1 of workplace sexual harassment. As I said before, we will post our crisis line in part 2 of the workplace sexual harassment presentation, where we will discuss what you can do if something like that happens to you. In the meantime, please check out our resources on our website. Thank you so much. See you next time.